So now that we have a couple of ideas we can go from and we've got the stimulus, how do we now turn that into something that then also incorporates a prescribed text, or the style of writing? Because they've asked for B. Compare how you have used language in part A to evoke emotion with the way writing has been crafted in at least one prescribed text. So what I always suggest students do is to have 3 key techniques ready to go from their prescribed text. So try to pick or go in with 3 stylistic features from an more imaginative sort of set text. So when I say imaginative, that will be more like barn owl, like a poetry, or for standard English, maybe the snowy woods one. But if you're going to be doing a discursive or persuasive, then maybe you want to pick something more like Nam Lee or Margaret Atwood's speech. And what I'm going to do for this particular one is I'm going to use Margaret Atwood's speech and give you an example of a discursive or a persuasive piece that you can write. So let's say we pick one of these issues. So we've got, let's say, the isolation one. And what we're going to do is maybe do a discursive. So if you look at isolation, one of the things you could look at is the fact that has it brought us closer together or has it taken us further apart? Because, we're so used to living in a world where we're rushing around and we've got a million different appointments. Like, how much time do we actually get to connect with the people closest to us, in our own household? So there could be a sense that you could be closer to people around you, or you could be more distant and really isolated. So that could really go both ways. That's a good one for a discursive, just as an example. And then I would recommend for this one incorporating the motif of a book in some way, just because that's in the actual stimulus. And again, you want to make it really clear that you've got the idea of, say, a book, and you've got the idea that someone has changed. So let's have a quick look at the techniques that you can pick. So I've got a different recording where I've done one for Margaret Atwood. So if you want more details on the types of techniques, you can go and check that one out. But one of a couple of the key things she uses, so she uses things like, so she starts off with an anecdote, okay, which is a personal story. She uses things like rhetorical questions, but she's a little bit more persuasive than discursive, as you'll see in the video that I did create. So when you're doing a discursive, you want to do more things like open questions, okay, rather than rhetorical questions or more leading. So you could have it, but you might want to also definitely put things like open questions, like, what do we think about this? And you're not necessarily leading them down one path or the other. You're just exploring the different options. And then you've got things like low modality. That's really important for discursive writing. So e.g., maybe, perhaps, that tone, sort of just looking at the different ideas. Okay, so then we take that one. And we've got a couple of and so when you're doing the reflection statement, you can actually specifically refer to how, say, Margaret Atwood uses those and then how you've incorporated it. But don't start your writing until you actually figure out which techniques you're going to need to incorporate. And you should have those ready to go before you even go into the exam, because it's very common that they will ask you to adopt stylistic features from the actual set text that you have. And in this particular situation with low modality, Margaret Atwood doesn't actually use a lot of low modality. So what you could say is that while she uses high modality, you've incorporated the low modality to give it that more discursive tone. And then that also really shows that you understand the difference in the tones between those two formats. So in the next one, what we're going to look at is how to take those particular techniques and put them into that idea for the discursive about whether or not social or isolation during COVID-19 has brought us closer or taken us further apart.